What's up, everybody? So we're back. I'm on my way to the dyno. It's a bit of a nostalgia for me today. I'm going to be dyno tuning the first car that I ever tuned, which was my old 2012 5.7 Challenger with the 6-speed manual transmission. So this car has a stage 2 cam, long tubes, no cats. It's got a ported 392 intake, and it's also on E85. So very excited to actually get to work with this car again. I initially started tuning it years ago. I haven't owned it in 2 years. Today's actually the 2-year anniversary, ironically enough, of when I sold it. So it's been almost 4 years of that car being tuned without ever being on a dyno. So I'm very excited. Going to kind of show you guys the mod list when I get there. Tried to videotape some pulls for you guys so you can see how it sounds. It's not a large cam. It is a stage 2 comp cam shelf. I think it's 2 HRT, the 303, whatever. I don't know the part number, but it's basically a 220, 230 cam with about a 596 lift. So it's just something that's just basic. It's not too aggressive, but it's also not too reservative, I guess you could say. It chops hard. So I'm very excited. So I'm happy to share this with you guys, and anyone who's looking into that 220, 230 cam or anything that's kind of around the same specs of that cam, you'll be able to kind of see what kind of power that car will make. So I'll check back in with you guys when I get to the dyno. Alright guys, here it is. Where everything started for Reed Performance. This is a 2012, like I said, 6-speed 5.7. We have the ported 392 manifold on there. I made my own true cold air intake with pieces off of Amazon. So bought this coupler, this angle, this 90-degree coupler, then I have a filter down there. So it actually pulls air from inside the wheel well, so it's actually not pulling in hot engine bay air. It's got long tube headers, catless. All this wiring I have because I have a N2MB watt box installed, which is what's actually activating the runners, and it's also got a 2-step in there. I've got, or actually the owner has, but I installed it, E85 sensor. It's got 315s on the back on a 20-inch wheel. Red eye spoiler. It's got the window louvers. I got the AFR gauge and the E85 gauge up here. Like I said, it's a 6-speed manual. This car used to be so loud that I actually had to put new mufflers back on it. So I actually reinstalled the OEM mids, and it really helped tame everything down a lot. So let's get started with this, man. I'm really excited. So gonna do a baseline pull with the power as it sits, how it sits right now. Let it warm up, and then we'll start dialing it in and see if we can make any more horsepower than where it sits right now. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so while I'm getting ready here, getting everything set up, I wanted to touch on something. So I have an AFR gauge here that I wired in a few years ago. It still works, but I'm not a fan of the PLX widebands anymore. I actually prefer to use the AEM Uego. I think it's the 0300, which has the OBD2 interface. Whereas these ones don't have the interface into the OBD2, and that's important because I want to be able to see the data in the scanner, and I can match the AFR data up to RPM, air charge, RPM, pressure ratios, all that things, and it basically does the math for me. I don't have to worry about trying to do the math. So one thing I will always recommend to anyone that I am remotely tuning or tuning in person and you choose to not have the dyno, I always recommend having a wideband. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But we're getting ready to go. I got the first file loaded in here, so let's turn the car on. We'll let it warm up. All right, so let's get connected here. I'll get out and you guys can hear how it chops. Let's get connected. This car is still pretty cold. Another thing that I did that was really proud of myself is I wired it into a switch. That way so the battery never drains. So you can see that we got about 81% of ethanol within the fuel system. And then as the wideband kind of powers up, you'll start to see this kind of fluctuate. So I'm going to give it a minute. Let's get outside. I'll let you hear the idle. Idle's still coming down a little bit. All right, so it's warmed up. One of my favorite things about this car was the chop. The car literally shakes. So let's see if you can see it. So if I rest the phone on here, you can see the car shaking from the idle. That was my favorite part about this car. So here's that chop. So like I said, it's tamed down a little bit because I did put the larger mid mufflers on there to make sure, it was more enjoyable for me and my wife when we would take it out. But it'll definitely scream. So we're almost ready here. It needs probably like 5 more minutes to warm up before we do any pulls in the dyno. I'll set the camera up, get it going. All right, so here is a little bit more. You can see the shake if you focus in right here on the water bottle. Look at that. Man, makes me wish that I had a cam again. Another thing to note, this is the chop and the shake is actually tuned in by me. So if you get your cam installed anywhere else and they don't specifically make it more choppy, your car won't be more choppy. You'll have that initial base choppy just from having an actually physically different camshaft. But to further increase the spark correction, the torque correction, the chop, and basically the shake that comes with that, you actually have to go in and play with the settings. So this is my favorite thing. There's nothing cooler than pulling up to a light and just sitting there just shaking, bro. It's the best. So we're almost ready. So let's get to it. All right, guys, so that was the first pull. It actually didn't do too bad. So let me kind of show you where we're at. So we hit 391 max HP and we hit 410 wheel torque. So that 410 number is actually right on par with the Mark 82 cam that I did. I believe that one made 417 wheel torque, if I remember correctly. So feeling was a little bit off. We're going to rev it a little bit higher than 61, 100 RPMs. Add a little bit more spark in there because for a typical E85 cam car, it can take a little bit more spark. So we're going to go ahead and give it that extra spark, and then we are going to see what it does. So I'll get you updated on pull number 2. Here we go. All right, so just in case you guys aren't able to hear the chop because I was wearing my microphone, I'm going to go out there and get it without the microphone. See if you're able to hear that a little better. All right, guys, so we're about 5 pulls in, and this car is just not giving me anything. So I must have tuned it really well the first time around because I literally can't get anything out of it. So we're still floating in the 390 horsepower range and the 405, 410 torque range. So an important thing to note, as we do more pulls, the motor is getting hotter. Heat soak is increasing. So a 5 horsepower or torque difference doesn't necessarily mean the car is making less power. It just means that the motor is hot, and we all know that when it's hot outside, cars make less power than when it's cooler. So I'm going to make one more change here, see if we can make anything different, or if we can get back to that 410 on a hot motor. Because if we're making 410 on a hot motor and we made 410 on a colder motor, then we know that 410 on the hotter pull is actually making more power. So I'm going to set up one more pull and then probably call it a day. So here we go. All right, so after that pull, we actually managed to come back to 411 and 393 wheel HP. So we're actually doing something right because we're making more power now on a hotter motor than when we were on a colder motor, which is generally what you want to see. You can see that our torque line and our HP line are flat. This cam is not really losing power after 5,800 RPMs, or 5,400 RPMs actually is where most of the 5.7s lose their power. So it's actually keeping that power longer. So that one we're revving out to about 6,400. Next pull, I'm going to see if we can get it to 6,600, see if we're going to maintain that steady power. That way, so there's more power up top. So we're going to keep on going. So we found something that the car liked, so let's keep it pushing. All right, so I just wanted to cover really quick one more time the mods on this car. So this is basically a shelf cam, and what a shelf cam means it's not custom spec'd. It's just basically a generic cam that'll work for 5.7 or 6.4. So this is a 220, 230 cam from Comp Cams. It's a stage 2. I think the part number is 201-303-17. I think that's the part number for the stage 2 cam. It comes with the springs and everything, phaser limiter. This car also has 2-inch long tube headers, no cats, ported 392 intake manifold with the true cold air intake filter. Now, was that filter actually help with performance? Maybe. The only difference is it's pulling colder air from underneath the car versus the hotter air from inside the engine bay. This car also has a watt box two-step that activates the runners and also serves as a two-step / launch control. I've got the wideband sensor, E85 gauge. It's got fuel injector clinic 650cc injectors, and it's tuned on E85. We're in the process of finishing the dyno tune right now. It's got 315s on the back. From the factory, it has the 3.09 limited slip diff, just because it's the manual transmission. So it's a very fun car to drive. I'm going to kind of show you what you can expect gain-wise versus a stock car or semi-stock car. I have never done a 100% stock 5.7 on this dyno. So the closest one I have is a 2016 5.7 that had the 392 intake manifold already on 91 gas. So these numbers that I'm about to show you can justify what adding a cam, a shelf cam like this one, not too aggressive, but it's not too subtle either. Headers and going on E85. Just keep in mind this transmission is a 6-speed manual. That transmission was the 8-speed, so the torque transfers from the motor to the wheels are different. It's not going to be 100% the same. So I'll take you over the screen right now. We'll check it out. All right, so we're looking at our very last pull, which is the top blue line. We hit 393 wheel HP, 411 wheel torque. And again, this is a 2012 motor with a 6-speed trans. These numbers would look a lot different if it was a newer motor on an 8-speed trans. The bottom blue line for reference is a 2016 5.7 on the 8-speed. So you can see that this car is making 70 more wheel HP, and it's making about 30 more wheel torque. But the biggest difference is right here where the stock 5.7 cam starts to kind of fall off in horsepower, this darker blue line here. That's where the cam still keeps rising. So at 5,000 RPMs, there's a difference of 60 wheel HP. At 5,500 RPMs, there's a difference of, what is that? That's almost 80 wheel HP. And then right here, when this 5.7 kind of, we call it fuel cuts, basically. It won't let you go any higher, doesn't make any more power. At 5,800 RPMs, we're looking at almost 100 wheel horsepower gain over the stock cam with E85 and headers. So that's just another reason why you want to cam these 5.7s. I also have this file here, so I'll hide the other one. So this is a 2013 5.7 392 intake manifold, catless, and on E85. So nearly identical mods, and you can see that the cammed car, which is the one we're doing, is still justifiable. I mean, you have 347 to 392. That's almost a 50 wheel HP increase top end, where most of these cars kind of fall on their face. The cam cars will continue to do good. Another thing you can notice is right here, we're at 391 at 5,300 RPMs. We go all the way to 6,300 RPMs, and we're only losing 5 HP. Whereas the stock cams just have that plummet. So that's just another reason why you want to cam these cars. I mean, the gains speak for themselves. The graph speaks for itself. Even if you don't want to have one that's super choppy, I mean, it's still worth it. And I'm actually waiting for the motor to cool down right now. I'm going to do one more pull on the same file that made 393 411. And we're going to see if cooling the motor down, we can bump those numbers up a little bit to get more of an accurate reading, just so we're not dealing with a heat-soaked motor. So we'll get on that right now, then that'll pretty much be this video. So I hope it was informative, and hopefully I did a great job of kind of explaining everything that's going on with this car. All right, guys, so we were actually making more power. So this will be our final pull here. So we're looking at 415 wheel torque and 398 wheel HP. I have that blue line up here again, which is that 2016 5.7 is the blue line, 91 gas, 392 intake manifold. Red is the last pull we just did on this car here, which is the stage 2 cam, long tubes, port 392 intake, and E85. So you can see that, I mean, just look at this here. This just speaks for itself. That's 90, almost 98 wheel HP difference right there alone, which is absolutely insane compared to a stock cam car. With great drivability. I mean, this car literally has been cammed for almost 5 years, like 4.5 years. Haven't had a single problem. I built this car in the garage myself. Initially got it tuned by someone else, was unhappy with the tune. Now it's got my own tuning on it, and it's making really, really good power. So if you want to, really increase the power of your 5.7 like this, cam, headers, E85 is definitely the way to go. Undoubtedly, you can pick up 100 wheel horsepower just doing that. 100 wheel horsepower, cam, headers, E85, keeping it all motor. Don't go worry about boosting it, strengthening the top end of the motor. So, why would you not want to do that? And on top of that, it's funner to drive. So we're going to pack this thing up and we'll get on out of here.